It's the Walk Pod post-match phone-in. Today we're going to be talking about Portsmouth 0, Luton Town 0. Look, it wasn't a vintage game, but you know what? It's a clean sheet and a first point on the board, and that is what's important. With me tonight is my co-host, Mark. How are you getting on, Mark?
Yeah, it's going to be good to talk about some positives, isn't it? There's definitely some talking points in the game, but I feel a lot better after a 0-0 draw than I probably thought I would do at the start of the game. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, as you say, there are positives. There are lots of positives. Unfortunately, there are still negatives to discuss. Personally, I get the feeling that there is so much more to come from Luton Town than we saw today. The foundations are there. It's important to be positive about it. But you know what else has so much more to come? The Walk podcast. And if you love the content from the We Are Luton Town podcast, please like this video if you're watching it on YouTube later and subscribe to our channel for more Luton Town, more championship content. We even have a Luton Town ladies podcast. It's just sensational, I must say. But let's dive into this game then. And also, if people want to request to speak, please do. It's good to get so much opinion on this. Where should we start, Mark? Where should we start?
Well, I think let's start from where we were at the first half before the incident that I'm sure we're going to discuss. I think I was really pleased to see Clicker and Bell back in the side, and both made a difference in this game, clearly. I think Clark obviously took some time to get into the game. I think he had quite a good first 10 minutes, and then they worked out that it's a two-man midfield and passed him by quite a lot, actually, to get past us. And I still think, as I'm sure will be said, that's still an issue to look at. However, when he did get hold of the ball, we were able to form an attack. We were able to build an attack a little bit more than we were against Burnley, and we were able to get it out to the wing a little bit more as well. So that was great. And obviously that chance through to Morris, who had a one-on-one with the keeper, is evident of that play from Clark in particular to give us a bit more of the control. I still think we have the same problems that we did against Burnley to a lesser degree, but then you're playing a much lower quality side. No offence to Portsmouth at all, but look, Burnley just smashed Cardiff 5-0 at home as well. It shows how good they are in attack. So I was pleased to see us creating the chances that we did. I think most of us would agree that if we'd have carried on with 11 men, as we were, I can't see any other result other than a Luton win. I'll be perfectly honest. I think Portsmouth got behind a little bit, but didn't really threaten a huge amount. So that's my overriding thoughts before the red card. I mean, I don't know. For me, it's absolutely stupid. But I would say, Kaminsky's got a lot in the bank for us. He's done a huge amount of good, and no one's going to go, dive in on him. I'm assuming after one howler, and it was a howler. It was a terrible, terrible decision to come out. And I know Edwards has tried to defend us time wasting in inverted commas by saying it was on purpose. Doesn't matter if it's on purpose. If it was the opposition, I'd still accuse them of time wasting. So I think, yeah, it's a fair. I can't argue with the sending off at all. I don't know what you think about that.
I think we got very lucky that it was only a second booking because it could have been a red card. Just a quick one for the people listening. Give a thumbs up if you agree with what Mark is saying. I'm actually unsure if Mark can you hear Mark? If you can, please give a thumbs up in the space because I know
Fingers crossed he can, but
yeah, I hope so. But no one said, "Oh, I can't." Why is Ollie just sitting here quietly?
wait to change.
Yeah,
Anyway, to be
look,
honest, I talk
it's
so much crap anyway. You wouldn't matter. You wouldn't know what's different.
well, if you read what they say in the YouTube comments about our predictions, apparently you're the one that knows ball.
I didn't just read
I
it,
don't know
Ollie.
anything.
I didn't just read it. I screenshotted it and sent it to you. That's going to be hanging on my wall.
Yeah, yeah. But that's why I have you on. I bring the looks, and you bring the knowledge. I think it's a very good pairing, to be honest. Yeah, but going back to Kaminsky, I don't know what was going through his head. As you said, I honestly, I don't know why he was that far out. I don't know why he took out two players. And yeah, I said, we're so lucky that it wasn't a straight red. Regardless, James Shea came on and did an unbelievable job. Also, it was kind of a blessing in disguise in a way, because it meant that we went 4-4-1. And that actually worked quite well. We were compact. We didn't get played through as easily as we had done against Burnley. So I'm looking at the silver linings, really. There are also some outstanding performances from certain players, like you had Ruel Walters, who was absolutely exceptional. Ted and Mengi, it goes without saying, he's levels above the championship, isn't he? He's
So good.
what a player. And also Amari Bell, who you wouldn't have known that this was his first game back with no preseason. He was exceptional as well. It was just enjoyable
and
to watch that back line.
Yeah, and Bell does the kind of the ugly stuff, the quiet stuff that you wouldn't really notice him being there, and he's always been like that as well. That's the great thing about Amari Bell. He sometimes gets overlooked at what an important player he is, and he showed just as important today that he kept everything ticking over in their back line. And like you said, after we went back to a back four, we looked so much more solid. Maybe that's the secret formation. We just play with 10 players instead of 11. There's the answer. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, Mengi, absolutely, as you said. Oh, what a performance! And I'm sure people are going to talk about that. I think a fair few players impressed me, but as you said, Roel Walters was up there, really up there. He had a really good game, and I think harder against Burnley with who he was playing against, but he looked more assured defensively today as well. I think he had that side completely covered. They didn't pose huge amounts of threat, and they kept then trying to switch it over to the other side as well to get any more joy. So I do think he did fantastically well. It must help having someone like Bella Mengi with him, and no disrespect to Johnson, because I think he's going to be an absolute player for us, but having two teenagers in that back line means that there isn't that kind of calm head there. I mean, Mengi's only early 20s anyway, so even though he was the most experienced on Monday, so yeah, no, excellent performances from them.
Yeah, and also we caught a glimpse of Tom Holmes as well, the tank Tom Holmes, and he actually made a quite an important defensive header towards the end. I was impressed with him. Sure, you don't want like someone like Wilson Odebear is not a good example because he's moved to Tottenham, but you don't want someone with searing pace running at him, because then it's bye bye Tom Holmes. But for a job, doing a job of closing out a game, he's absolutely who you want to bring on. Like I think he was the right choice over Joe Johnson today.
Yeah, and for the reasons that you said as well, I agree. When Bell came off, I think there was about 10-15 minutes to go when Bell came off for him. And, I although Bell's only just come back from injury, I get it. I was a little bit nervous to see Tom Holmes at the back. But yeah, no, I think he was really solid. They didn't pose much for a threat. The only chance they had was after the ball had gone out. Ended up being a mixture of a good save and a good block. sort of block hit him on the head. But yeah, I think he was really solid. I think the whole team were. The shape that they got was fantastic, and that does give me some faith because I hold up my hands. I've been really worried about a lack of a plan B, but there clearly is one. There clearly is a four at the back formation because that level of shape, that level of structure probably doesn't just come out of nowhere. So Edwards probably does have that up his sleeve, and I would love to see it more, particularly when our players get back, because I think that for me gives us some options of putting another body in midfield, because clearly that's still where our undoing is. I thought there are a few others that had a good game. I think Obene's getting there. I think he showed some real quality going forward. Wasn't for the whole match at all, but I think some of his bursts of pace were causing Portsmouth all kinds of trouble. I think Doughty had better moments in this game as well. I think both of them were pretty much marked out of the game in the game against Burnley. So I was pleased to see those, and it was good to see Adebayo and Morris get the chances. I was as disappointed as everyone that they didn't take it, but they're in the right place for it. I know that the commentator was absolutely slating Adebayo's effort really early on in the second half. I actually don't think that's a bad effort, the way that he's tried to go about it. I don't think it's the right execution, but I think it was the right decision outside of the foot, because that way the keeper hasn't got a chance of saving it from the angle that he's at. And of course, Joe Taylor's little cameo run after throwing
What a run!
against about three
What
players.
a run that
It
was!
bouncing back to him three times and then shot. Yeah, what a run it is, and it shows how important it is to have a player that can turn a defence as well. Because as good as Adebayo and Morris are, and they're brilliant, and Adebayo is quick, we haven't got a player that will play on the shoulder of defenders like that, apart from Joe Taylor. And he really is such an asset because he brings something different, and particularly when you're in a game where you're going to be playing on the counter-attack, he's so important for that. So I was really pleased to see that run, and hopefully we see a bit more of it in the future as well.
There'll be uproar if he leaves on a permanent. Absolute uproar.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to get in and speak, please don't be shy. Request to speak. Mark, you can keep an eye on who requests to speak. For some reason on my end, it still has you down as a listener. It's not even showing you as a co-host.
Well, it's got it online, so I'll do the background.
Yeah, go on. That's great. So don't be shy, people. This is a fan phone in. Otherwise, you're listening to me and Mark prattle on for half an hour, and that's not fun for anyone, is it?
Nobody wants that. Well, we've got Simon in. Tom Lockyer, we trust, is here. So if you want to unmute yourself, Si, and give your view on the game, mate.
Hello, guys. It's good to be back, appearing on the unofficial fan-voted #1 podcast on Twitter. Good to be back. Good point today, considering the circumstances. And despite Thomas Kaminsky trying out for the UFC today, Amari Bell being back is big, man. That guy flies so under the radar and has done for so long. He provides us balance. He brings that calmness to the defence, like you were saying. Rue Walters, he's just a gem. I said it earlier after the game. If there's anything to praise the recruitment team for so far, it's him. They've done so well to identify him and to see that potential there and say, look, we'll give you these games, and we convince him to come. And I think it's going to pay off. I think he's only going to get better and better. And he's not alone, which I really love, that he's he's here for good, well, at least for the foreseeable future. I think that matters. And Shandon Baptiste, I think he went under the radar today as well. He's doing all these little bits that don't get the headlines, that don't get the talk. He's helping us tick over in the middle of the park as well. I think we have to go to 4 at the back. I think we were just so much better.
That's so true. 4 at the back, Mark, you probably agree with me. four at the back will allow someone else to sit in there with Baptiste to let him go on those rampaging runs. It really frees him up, right?
What do we do when Nakamba's back? Do we have him sit in that spot?
Yeah, of course.
We have him there, and then you give Shandon Baptiste a bit more freedom to cause a bit more chaos in the middle of the field. I think that's the way to go. I said it after the Celta Vigo game that I like Tom Holmes as well. I said I think there's something there. He got some slating after the Burnley game. Thought that was a bit unfair as well. You know, but I think he's going to be all right. I think you're right. He's going to be the man you bring on with 20 minutes to go to see out those long balls in. I think there's something there with him. I really do. I think it's just a case of getting up to pace.
Yeah.
And also we'll have Mads, hopefully.
He was training, apparently, from what I read.
Right? Yeah. So, and he does a similar job, hopefully, with a bit more experience at the level as well. So, gives us a few more options back there, especially if we're defending our own box.
I think Joe Taylor has a place in this squad. I don't think we should be sending him out on loan. Like Ollie said, we don't have that player who's going to play off the shoulder like he does. That run, when he come on, I was thinking to myself, go on then, Joe, this is your moment, mate. And when he went on that run and he got the lucky bounce off the Portsmouth player to be through, and I was thinking, go on, have a shot. And he tried to play it across the Chong. Fair play to him. He did attempt it. Chong looked a bit annoyed. But there wasn't much, Joe. He was going full pelt. And I think we need him. I think that there's a place for him on the bench at least. I think there's minutes for him this season. And I think that he may learn more with those impact minutes than, you know, maybe going to League One. I think he's beyond that league now.
He's definitely beyond that league. Look, he went to League Two. He smashed it in a relegation threatened side. He went to League One to a team that were comfortably mid-table and pretty much single-handedly propelled them into the playoffs that they missed out like last day. He's obviously benefited so much from loans, and now it's time for him to have a go in the Championship. And hopefully that performance today, that brief cameo, has done enough to put him back in Rob Edwards' mind. Because yes, we have big bruisers like Elijah Adebayo and Colton Morris where you can ping in a cross and, you know, they'll either like control it on their chest or get their head onto it. When we were going direct from goal kicks or just putting it down the line, Joe Taylor doesn't have a chance. He was trying. He was mixing it with the centre backs, but obviously he's, you know, shorter, so he doesn't have a chance to get in and win those aerial balls. But when we actually do start to play it through the middle, or as shown by that run where he drops deep, collects the ball, and then just charges forward, that is what you need Joe Taylor for. It really is. Thank you very much for joining us, Simon. Really appreciate it, mate.
Have a good one, guys.
Cheers, Si.
Right, Mark, have we got anyone else?
So we've got Steve. We've got Steve waiting to speak. So, Steve, if you want to unmute yourself, mate, and let us know how you thought we got on today.
Evening, Steve.
I think we'll take it, considering the situation. Like I say, we can't even moan about the fact that Mengi should have been the one book, because frankly, he should have got at least 2 bookings for the 2 challenges he made in the incident in question, if not a red card.
Yeah, I actually don't understand what happened. So I see these goal kick routines, and they're very confusing. So it's the goalkeeper rolls the ball with his hand to the defender, and then the defender passes it back to the goalkeeper. And Rob Edwards said in his post-match press conference that Mengi was holding the ball to see what was going to happen with where the Portsmouth team were going to leave space. To me, that doesn't make sense, right?
No, I can see what he's trying to get at, because the point, the thing is, Mengi hasn't taken it. The point is, he's rolled it to Mengi, so Mengi takes it. But that changes how an opposition side press you, and the point he's trying to make is he's waiting to see, the plan is to see where the holes are in the where the opposition have pressed you. Obviously, what happens quite often, and not just with us, but with a lot of teams, is that there isn't any holes, and he's waiting and waiting, and basically it's almost like two guys trying to stare each other out, which is why it took so long. And the rule about time wasting doesn't have to take into account whether the team wants to be time wasting or not. You have to take the goal kick at some point. What I didn't quite understand was why the guy that is quite obviously about to take the goal kick is not the one getting booked. But like I say, we can't even be upset about that because he's ended up committing 2 challenges that were both worthy of a booking in the space of 5 seconds, if not one of them being worthy of a red card. So,
yeah, the second one especially, that was red card worthy. That was high.
Yeah, that was really. It was just mad. It brought back memories of me of the Iran game at the last World Cup for Wales. Just a moment of absolute madness from a goalkeeper. But
you'll have to explain that. You have to explain what actually happened there because no one watches Wales
in a
play
0-0
football.
game and basically kung fu kicked a guy because he was so far out the goal and got himself sent off with a straight red, which, as I mentioned, Kaminsky could have quite easily. I got a straight red for that. But I think we did okay. I think, as you mentioned, there are still issues with the entire tactical system, particularly as a team that is expected to have a lot of the ball in a lot of these games because teams are going to sit on us more than they did the last time we were at this level, and certainly obviously more than last year. And obviously it's been done to death, the gaps that can leave for us being driven through the middle. But I actually think we looked much better stylistically at what he is trying to do outside of shape, but in terms of style, defensively as well. I think, yes, we rode our luck at times, but only as much as they rode their luck at 11 and with 10. I think your previous caller mentioned I felt a bit sorry for Joe Taylor because Taffy Chong was having a go at him twice. I don't know what Joe was meant to do. He tried to play the pass. I don't know why you're having a go at him for that one. And then, having got the ball, lucky Ricochet and got the ball back, he did at least try and hit it across the goalkeeper. So if the keeper parried it out, it would have gone straight back to Chong anyway. But there's positive signs. Obviously, I don't think we can get caught up in the middle of the park thing because I don't think we're going to get too many enforcements on that. If it's not Liam Walsh, I don't think there's a huge clamour. I think we've got to accept that he's going to treat central midfield with about as much priority in these games as NFL teams treat linebackers, i.e. the lowest priority of any position on the football field, given that it does now appear we're signing McGuinness, but the idea of us, I don't know how much we're going to play, but I somehow doubt it'll be anywhere near the 10 million they're asking for, given that's twice the amount we paid for Ryan Giles last year.
Yeah, it's likely it'll be an initial fee with performance-related add-ons. There's no way we're dropping 10 mil. I think that's just the price they slapped on, but that's why it's taking so long.
Yeah. I mean,
it's taking that long because we're trying to bring the price down. We're trying to incentivize them with add-ons. I guess we'll see what happens. But you mentioned someone else there. You mentioned Liam Walsh, who is very likely to join us. Looking at the bench today, there weren't that many midfield options. Like, outside of bringing Pelly Ruddock on and waiting for Marvin Nakamba to come back, realistically, who else do we have that can do a job, in the attacking midfield?
I'd agree in that because that area seems lighter because even if you said everyone was suddenly fit, you're only really getting Nakamba back there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still slightly light. Whereas the position we just mentioned with McGuinness, if you had everybody fit, we've already had Holmes come off the bench today. And as you mentioned, one very crucial block, which is very much what he's going to provide for us stylistically. And if we are winning games by a goal at this level, he's going to be a player that is someone we can use. And as Rob mentioned, when he has been pressed on some of these injury issues, particularly in the 3 counties interview he did before the start of the season, he might be more willing to make defensive substitutions in order to try and prevent another injury crisis, particularly if his general plan 1 is to play as such a high-pressure style as he's obviously committed to, let's be entirely honest. So there's definitely a role for him. But if you sign McGuinness, you add McGuinness to that, you add Burke to that, you add Hashioka to that, possibly. Obviously, we both Hashioka and Walters are much more right-wing backs than they are centre-halves, but they can play there. Obviously, Joe Johnson to a degree, although I'm pretty sure very few of us would actually want to see a huge amount of minutes from him in the Championship. But we suddenly look, you add McGuinness to that and everyone gets fit. We're a lot more overstacked there than we would be in midfield areas. So it seems like that has to be, we do need to bring somebody in there, at least, no matter how low priority he considers that position on the field, given what he wants to do stylistically.
Very good points.
I mean, I would really hope that he is put it as a priority as much as a centre-back. And I get your point, Steve, I do. And we talked about this in the last space. I think Fergus mentioned this and how important a midfielder is. I'd add to that as well today. I mean, Clark had a couple of fouls that he was quite lucky to get away with not getting a yellow card for. He did get a yellow card in the end, probably for something slightly less worthy. But, you know, on another day, he could easily have got one of those, a yellow card, maybe even 2. And look, I was calling for midfielders to, or all of our players, to have a bit of bite about them. So in that sense, you know, it's good that he didn't just allow a player to run past him. But what I worry about with the 2-man midfield, apart from the obvious, is that players are like Clark are the kind of last line of defence, and you don't want Jordan Clark as the last line of defence. Putting in last-ditch tackles.
Well, I think he refused to have a midfielder there that plays like that. That's why Campbell's not involved. That's why he's gone stylistically. He's decided that the only thing defensively that matters in central midfield is the ability to press. He doesn't care about the defensive responsibilities beyond that. That's something stylistically we're going to have to get used to unless he decides to change his mind. I mean, we either have to accept that or want him out the building. And none of us, I think, are willing to pull that lever yet. We just have to accept that this is what he wants to do. We have to accept that's what's going on. But you talk just from a numbers game, you're right. Not only for the yellow cards reason, we're talking about Cricket, who's coming back from injury and had quite serious injury last year. Shannon Baptiste, through his entire career, is catalogued with injuries. We would not be having him in the Championship, trust me, if he hadn't been as injured, because he'd still be at Brentford. He's on the ball. When he's on the pitch, his quality is too good for a free transfer gamble for a Championship club, because that's the only reason he's a gamble. And that's the only reason for me he's in the Championship, is because of his horrendous injury record. Nakamba, we know, has had consistent injuries pretty much since we signed him permanently. The numbers aren't there, and the players we do have are injury prone themselves. And so we need to add numbers, because as much as Zach was nowhere near the worst player against Burnley, Zach, like JJ, should not be near a side that's challenging for the top 6 in the Championship right now.
Very good points. Thank you very much for joining us, Steve. Really appreciate you, mate. An interesting one there as well, because the point that you both made will be stacked defensively. However, like as Steve alluded to, when Rob Edwards discussed the theory based on why defenders get so many injuries, is because we can't make as many defensive changes because they have fast attackers running at them, and then the attackers get changed, and then the new attackers running at them, and it's like constant, it's wear and tear that leaves them injured. I think having, potentially McGuinness join us, it's good. Like, defense is one of the areas where we should be stacked, because there are always going to be those injuries. Reece Burke is injury prone. Teden Mengi, he's constantly going down, apparently injured. Maybe he needs a rest. That's the thing. We need to have that ability to rotate defenders.
Yeah, and I mean, you go around our side, and how many of our players are in the same position that Steve said about Baptiste, that came to us, who have got potential but poor injuries. I mean, you could name nearly all of them, including Lokonga and Barkley, who left, of course. And Mengi had huge injury problems before he came to us. Doughty played his first full season, I think, pretty much in professional football last season in the Premier League. So all of these players have got injury problems. And with the midfield, if you're playing a two-man midfield and we're saying he's married to the system, those midfielders have got to cover a hell of a lot of ground as well, as we've said. So even if they are playing and they're playing fit, they're still more likely to get injured. I mean, Jordan Clark's no slouch, is he? He's gonna cover a hell of a lot of miles during a game, and therefore he's not going to be able to play every single game of a 4 to 6 game season in the Championship if we're going to continue with that system beyond the tactical stuff that we said already.
So true. I feel we definitely need reinforcements in the middle. Thinking about when Marv comes back, it will be Marv, Pelly, Jordan Clark, Zach Nelson can do a job there, Shannon Baptiste, and I'm pretty sure that's it in the middle of the park. Tahith Chong can probably fill in there. Liam Walsh might be able to do a job there, but I don't think he's going to be. You definitely don't want to rely on him with his injury records, considering, I'm anticipating that it's going to be quite a frosty reception from the Luton Town fan base when he's announced. I think he's like a bench option to sort of help out Tahith Chong more than being a nailed on starter. I don't know if we have time for one more caller. If there's anyone waiting, I guess we can take someone.
We do. We've got Christian waiting, who's been waiting patiently. So, Christian, if you want to unmute, mate, and let us know.
Christian, we have time for a very brief cameo from our Yank. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing good. Since it has to be brief, I'll keep it brief then. I think the differences between today and Monday are very stark. We made 2 changes with not having Nelson or Joe Johnson out there. Great thinking, helped us tremendously. Don't really know what Thomas Kaminsky was doing. Don't understand why he always wants to leave the goal. It's cost us goals, and now he's banned for a match. I think we played amazing. I think the 4-4-1 we ran was a big improvement on what we've done previously. I really hope that this upcoming week we can get Liam Walsh and McGuinness in. And I think where we are now is great. And I think with a few more transfers to fill the registration spots, we're going to be in a really great position if we can continue to play like we did today.
That's really great. Short and sweet, mate. Thank you very much. Good job.
I think, the only thing I'd say on the Kaminsky point is I think that he didn't come out for, was it Burnley's third goal as much? I think it went through his legs, didn't it? I think it was the Odebert one. And I think maybe that was in his mind, or probably the atmosphere. Pompey atmosphere can be a bit intimidating. I think it's a mixture of the two, maybe. Because, as I said, he's got a lot in the bank still for us.
He made 2 absolutely sensational saves before he even got sent off as well. Like, I think there was one from the Pompey defender where I think it bounced into the ground. He palmed it wide. Fantastic. It really was. Also, Elijah had a very similar one that I genuinely thought was in. It was a tremendous
That was an excellent save, that one.
Yeah, dug it out. I was convinced it went behind, behind the goal line.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely insane. Right. Well, a lot of positives to look forward to. And myself and Mark will be getting back together for the Championship Week 3 prediction video as well. I hope people are enjoying those. If you watch any of our content on YouTube, please If you're not subscribed, subscribe. It's such a fast growing YouTube and it's just jam packed with content right now. If you're watching this video on YouTube, it only takes a second. Just hit that like button. And also a big thank you to our audio partners, Carry On and Black Star Amplification. They make sure that we sound great. Also, a big thank you to our podcast sponsor, the Record Shop in Amersham. Mention our name if you're in there. They will give you a big smile, but they might not give you a discount. Why not? As always, thank you all for tuning in, and thank you to our speakers. I hope you all have a great day. And as always, come on, you Hatters.